You know, there's something quite mysterious about the moment when two awakened beings look into each other's eyes. It's not like the ordinary glances we exchange every day, those hurried, surface-level interactions filled with masks and subtle fears. No, when two awakened souls truly see one another, it's as if the whole play of existence pauses for a brief eternity. Because what are they seeing, really? Not the person. Not the name, the form, the history, or the personality. All those are but ripples on the surface of a much deeper ocean. What they see is the same awareness looking back, the same consciousness that is behind the stars, behind the eyes of animals, behind the rustle of trees and the breath of the wind suddenly recognizing itself. And for that instant all separation collapses. You see, most of us live our lives under a peculiar illusion that we are something separate, enclosed in a bag of skin, moving through a world of other things. We talk about me and you, here and there, this and that. But awakening, in its simplest essence, is the sudden realization that these divisions are imaginary. They are lines drawn in water. When one truly wakes up, one discovers that the observer and the observed are not two. The thinker and the thought, the dreamer and the dream, they are one movement. So, when two beings awaken and they meet, it is not a meeting at all. It is a remembering. It is life recognizing itself in another form. The wave realizing it is part of the same ocean as the wave beside it. There's no need for words in that recognition. Sometimes there's even laughter, not the laughter of mockery, but the laughter of divine surprise. Ah, they say, without saying it, you were me all along. And yet, even as they meet, there remains the beauty of form, the individuality, the dance of difference, because the awakened one does not deny the play. They do not pretend that the ocean has no waves. They celebrate the waves, the individuality, the quirks, the humor, the mannerisms. These become music, expressions of the same life, force wearing different masks. But there is no longer any attachment to the mask. You see, when an unawakened person meets another, they are always seeking something: approval, security, desire, control. We approach others like merchants in a marketplace, trying to buy affection, to sell our image, to negotiate our worth. But when two awakened beings meet, there is no such bargain. There is nothing to gain and nothing to lose. They do not meet as two incomplete beings hoping to fill their emptiness. They meet as two complete expressions of the same whole, overflowing rather than lacking. They share not because they need, but because it is natural for light to shine, for rivers to flow, for flowers to bloom, and this changes everything, because in that space, love is no longer an emotion. It is the very texture of being. It's not something you feel toward another, it is what you are, revealed through the presence of another. Have you ever stood before a mirror and seen not your reflection, but the very act of seeing itself? That's what it's like, two mirrors facing each other, infinitely reflecting awareness, seeing awareness. Of course, this doesn't mean that awakened beings walk around in some kind of dreamy bliss, floating above the ground. On the contrary, they are more deeply rooted in the ordinary world than ever before. They can enjoy a cup of tea, the sound of laughter, the smell of rain, with a vividness that seems almost childlike. But the difference is that they no longer cling to these moments. They no longer try to hold on to them or define themselves by them. And so, when they meet each other, the connection is effortless. It's not I like you because you make me feel good. It's I am you, how wonderful that we can play. But notice such a meeting cannot be forced. You cannot go searching for an awakened soul to meet, as though you were looking for a rare jewel to collect. Because the very search implies that you are not yet awake. You see, the one who seeks to find enlightenment in another is still asleep, still dreaming of separation, still hoping to reach something outside themselves. The paradox is that when you stop seeking, when you sit quietly and truly see the nature of your own mind, that's when the world becomes filled with awakened beings, because you realize everyone is it. Every face is the face of God, every glance a mirror of your own awareness. The difference between an awakened soul and a sleeping one is not that one is divine and the other is not. It's that one knows it. And so, when two who know meet, it is as though the universe has momentarily smiled at itself. But here is the exquisite thing: even though they see the same truth, they can still play the game of being two. They can talk, dance, fall in love, argue, make art, share silence, and through it all they never forget that it's all the same dance. Because awakening doesn't mean escaping the human experience, it means diving into it with open eyes. It means realizing that the whole of existence, the pleasure and the pain, the meeting and the parting, the birth and the death, is one unbroken movement of life exploring itself. When two awakened souls see each other, they don't promise eternity. They don't cling or possess. They simply meet like two stars whose light happens to cross in the vast sky, and for that instant the universe shines a little brighter. Then, whether they stay together or drift apart, it doesn't matter. For the connection is not bound by time or space. It is eternal, not because it lasts forever in human terms, but because it was never divided in the first place. So, the real mystery is not when two awakened souls meet, but that they ever believed they were apart. You see, the funny thing about awakening is that once you've seen through the illusion of separation, even a simple encounter feels like the universe winking at you. There's a kind of cosmic humor in it, as if life itself is saying, "You thought you were alone all this time, didn't you?" When two awakened souls see each other, there is no longer a script being followed. No rehearsed lines, no carefully curated identity to present. What meets is raw being naked, unguarded, radiant in its simplicity. Most relationships in this world are built on a kind of subtle pretense. I will show you this version of me, and you will show me that version of you. We wear masks, polite ones, charming ones, seductive ones, spiritual ones. But behind them there's always fear, fear of rejection, fear of insignificance, fear of truly being seen. The awakened soul has dropped the mask, not as an act of rebellion or defiance, but simply because it became too heavy to carry. They have discovered that there is no one to protect, that the one who was pretending all along was just a thought, a ghost image. And when this illusion falls away, what remains is breathtakingly ordinary and astonishingly divine at once. So when two such beings meet, their interaction is more like a dance than a conversation. Words may come, but they are secondary to the silence that hums underneath a silence that says, "I see you, not as a person, but as presence itself." Have you ever noticed how, when you are deeply at peace, even a stranger's glance can feel intimate? That's because the depth within you recognizes itself in the depth of another. And so it is with two awakened beings. They meet beneath the surface of roles and stories, in the current of something ancient and boundless. In that space, love is no longer something one falls into. It's not a possession or an emotion that rises and falls with circumstance. It's an awareness, a way of seeing. Love becomes the recognition that there was never a separation to begin with, and yet this love does not exclude sorrow or loss or impermanence. On the contrary, awakening makes one profoundly intimate with change. The awakened see that everything they love will pass, and that this very passing is the music of existence. So when two awakened beings part ways, they do not suffer in the same way that the unawakened do. There may be sadness, yes, but it is the sweet sadness of autumn, the kind that knows every falling leaf returns to the soil to bloom again. Because to awaken is to die before you die, to see that the self you cling to is but a story told by the wind. And so when you truly die to that illusion, what remains is a vast stillness, and in that stillness everything and everyone is embraced. When two awakened souls meet, they can sit together in silence, and it feels like an entire conversation has happened. Or they can speak for hours, and it feels like one unbroken silence. Their connection doesn't depend on proximity, or frequency, or words. It's more like two flames that burn from the same fire, distinct in shape, yet made of the same light. And in that light there's no anxiety about the future, because they know whether they walk side by side for a lifetime, or cross paths for only a moment. The meeting was never an accident. Nothing ever is. Everything is the universe in conversation with itself, so perhaps what we call meeting is really the cosmos folding inward to recognize its own reflection. It's like a dream in which two characters suddenly realize they are being dreamt by the same mind. That realization changes everything. You no longer try to control, to own, to define. You begin to listen, deeply, to the rhythm of another's being, to the silence between their words, to the unspoken tenderness in their eyes. Because the awakened understand that listening is love, real listening, not the kind that waits for its turn to reply, but the kind that melts boundaries. There's a story I often like to tell. Imagine two musicians improvising together. Neither dominates, neither plans too far ahead. Each listens, responds, weaves, and surrenders. And what emerges is not the will of either one, but the music of the relationship itself. That's how awakened souls relate. Their connection is not about control, but about surrender, about trust in the flow of what is arising, moment by moment. And this surrender does not make them passive, it makes them alive, because only when you stop clinging can you truly dance. Only when you stop insisting on how life should be can you taste how miraculous it already is. So, when two awakened souls see each other, they do not bind one another. They do not say, "You are mine." Instead, they say, "You are free, and so am I." They love in such a way that freedom is not threatened, but celebrated. It is a love without fear, without dependence, without the endless drama of attachment and rejection. It is spacious, like the sky, and yet tender, like the touch of sunlight on water. And the beauty of it is that this meeting happens not just between people. When you awaken, you begin to see everything as a form of that same recognition. You see the tree, and it is no longer a thing. You see your reflection in the river, and it is no longer just you. You look at the stars and realize they are looking back. Life becomes a continuous conversation between the seen and the seer. That's the great cosmic joke, that all along you were looking at yourself through a million different faces. And so, when two awakened souls meet, they are simply awake enough to laugh at the play, to embrace the paradox that they are both one and two at the same time, inseparable, yet delightfully distinct. They are two eyes of the same being, gazing at each other across the vastness of creation. Now let's look at something even subtler. When two awakened souls live in this world, not in some monastery or mountaintop, but right here, amidst the noise and traffic and laughter, their love takes on a peculiar quality. It is not what most people imagine love to be. There's no obsession, no desperate clinging, no hunger for completion. Rather, it's an abiding serenity, an affection that breathes, expands, and releases. You see, ordinary love is often an attempt to escape loneliness. We search for someone to make us feel whole because we secretly believe we are fragments. We treat relationships as a kind of insurance policy against emptiness. But when one awakens, one realizes that what we called emptiness was never a void, it was spaciousness, the infinite background of consciousness itself. So the awakened soul doesn't look for someone to fill that space. They are that space, and in that spaciousness there's room for everything: joy, sorrow, intimacy, solitude. Thus, when two such beings see each other, their connection isn't born of need, but of recognition. It's as if the ocean had suddenly noticed another wave and whispered, "Ah, there you are, another expression of my own movement." This recognition brings a tenderness that is not sentimental, but sacred. They don't try to hold each other in cages of expectation or identity. They allow each other to be who they are, changeable, unpredictable, free. And that freedom is not cold or detached. It's the very essence of love. For love, when purified of grasping, becomes the art of letting things be. When you love an awakened soul, you love someone who will not play your game. They will not feed your illusions, nor participate in your dramas. They will reflect you sometimes gently, sometimes with piercing clarity, showing you where you are still asleep. It can be unsettling, even painful, because awakening always is. But that's the gift of such a meeting. You are invited to dissolve not into another person, but into what you both truly are. And sometimes that invitation comes through joy, and sometimes through heartbreak. For the awakened understand that heartbreak is not the opposite of love, but one of its purest expressions. It breaks open the shell of separation. Have you ever noticed how, after great loss, the world seems quieter, more vivid? That's because grief strips away the unnecessary. It reminds you that what you truly loved was never the form, but the essence, the light behind the eyes, the stillness within the voice. So when two awakened beings part, there is no bitterness, no regret. They bow to the mystery that brought them together, and they bow again to the mystery that moves them apart. For they know that endings are just beginnings in disguise. Even the most fleeting encounter can be eternal when seen in this light. Because eternity is not a long time, it is the absence of time, and love, when freed from the clock, never ends. Now, to bring this down to the level of ordinary life, because, after all, enlightenment is not an escape from the ordinary. Imagine these two awakened souls at breakfast. Perhaps they are eating quietly, perhaps joking about the burnt toast, perhaps saying nothing at all. The sacred is not in what they do, but in how they are. There's no pressure to perform, no anxiety to impress. Their silence is full, not awkward. Their laughter is spontaneous, not forced. Every moment is complete in itself. They don't measure the relationship in milestones, anniversaries, promises, goals, because they are too busy being alive now. That's the secret most of us miss, that every attempt to secure love for the future destroys its beauty in the present. The awakened soul does not say, "I will love you forever." Instead, they say, "I love you now, and now is forever." You see, the mind deals in time, but love lives outside of it. So, when two awakened souls meet, they live in a state of creative uncertainty. They don't know what tomorrow will bring, and that's precisely why life feels so fresh, so real. Control is replaced by trust. Possession is replaced by presence, and this presence transforms the smallest gestures into poetry. A glance, a touch, a shared silence, these become doorways into infinity. But, of course, awakening doesn't make one immune to human emotion. Anger still comes, jealousy may still flicker, old patterns may still arise, but now they are seen clearly without judgment. And that seeing is what dissolves them, for the awakened one knows, this too is me, this too is the play. When conflict arises, they don't rush to blame. They listen not with their ears, but with their entire being. And through that deep listening, something remarkable happens. Understanding blooms, not the understanding of the intellect, but of the heart. This is why, in the presence of an awakened soul, even arguments can become meditation. Because there is no longer the urge to win, only the wish to see, and perhaps that's the most beautiful thing about the meeting of awakened souls, the humility of it, the utter absence of pretense. They do not parade their enlightenment like a trophy. They laugh at it. They see that awakening is not an achievement, but a homecoming, the simplest thing in the world. Two awakened souls sitting under a tree may look like two ordinary people sharing tea. But beneath that simple act the entire cosmos is vibrating with awareness. They are not doing spirituality. They are being. They are the silence behind all words, the stillness behind all motion. And in that silence there is room for everything: laughter, sorrow, mistakes, imperfection, beauty. So when two awakened souls see each other, it is not a romantic fairy tale. It's more real than that. It's two beings who have stopped pretending, who have stopped searching, who have finally recognized that everything they ever sought was already here in this gaze, in this breath, in this infinite, ordinary now. And so, my friends, when two awakened souls see each other, it is not the meeting of two separate beings. It is the universe catching its own reflection in a moment of divine recognition. It is the sea realizing, "Ah, I am the wave, and you are too." There is no need for promises, for forever, or for names. The connection itself is eternity. It needs no label, because it is the thing all labels try to touch. So if ever in your life you look into the eyes of another and time stands still, if your breath slows and something ancient inside you whispers, "I know you," don't rush to define it. Don't be afraid to lose it. For you cannot lose what was never separate. Instead, smile gently, as if you've remembered an old joke the cosmos once told. Because in that moment you are both the laughter and the silence that follows. And perhaps that is love's greatest secret, not to find another to complete you, but to awaken so deeply that you see yourself in everyone you meet. And with that, let us fall quiet again, after all. Awakening isn't about finding light. It's about realizing you were never in the dark.